And with that, the NDP National Convention comes to a close here in Hamilton, Ontario. And of course, we've been very happy to be bringing for you special live coverage of this event right here on CPAC. Now, to take a look at what has happened over the last few days, we've invited once again Anne McGrath, National Director for the NDP, of course, frequent host on CPAC as well. So, Anne, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
So, as National Director, as an organizer of this event, after all the debate and the resolutions, what do you think your party has been able to accomplish here?
Well, I mean, this was the very first in-person gathering of the NDP in 5 years. I think one of the main things, we passed a lot of resolutions. We heard a lot of great speeches, a lot of great panels, great debates, all of that. But the main thing for me, I think, was just the kind of, the networking, the energy that people got from each other, the informal and formal connections that people were able to make. It really, I think, puts a spring in our step as we leave here. And I really had the sense that people feel so passionately about what we're able to do and really want to make sure that there are more NDP members of Parliament.
But as you say that, of the policy resolutions that were debated and passed, and I know that's something that the executive and the leadership is going to have to look at now, but certainly there seems to be a very clear message from your grassroots that they are reaffirming this party's center-left roots and very much proud of being progressives. But do you think that is where the country is right now, given the economic times Canadians are facing, the economic challenge the country faces? Are such progressive policies that do rely on public spending the place where Canadians are right now?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of support for the work that the NDP has been able to do historically in minority parliaments. Many of the social programs that we love and that we cherish and that we rely on came from the NDP's role in minority parliaments over the decades. So I think that there is a lot of faith and trust and hope in what we can do. And I think if you look at the results of some key electoral races over the country in the last little while, you'll see that there is an appetite for those socially progressive measures. If you look at the re-election of an NDP government in British Columbia, the largest opposition ever in Alberta is the NDP opposition in Alberta. The opposition to Scott Moe in Saskatchewan is primarily coming from the progressive movements, and cannot in any way underestimate the immense pride that everybody feels in the fact that Wab Kinew is now going to be the Premier of Manitoba. But even here in Ontario, for instance, where I'm located, we look at the magnificent victory of Olivia Chow in Toronto, the largest city in the country, and she was up against the full force of Liberal and Conservative machines, and she won in the largest city in the country. So there's example after example after example. Marit Stiles and what she's been able to do to force Premier Ford onto his back foot for the first time, really, in his mandate, this mandate, and get a reversal on the Greenbelt decision, and now has the RCMP investigating. So there's a lot of really, really clear examples across the country of people responding well to these kinds of progressive policies, and the character of the politicians who share those priorities and those values.
A lot of the criticism was, of course, given to the Liberal government, but I would say the vast majority of the real criticism was targeted to Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. What does that say about the strategy that the NDP will be playing between now and whenever a writ may be dropped?
Well, I think there seems to be a mood in the country for change, and people are very disappointed in the Liberal government, and they want something better. I believe that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are selling snake oil, and that this is not that none of their proposals will actually improve people's lives. So what we see is that the Liberal government looks like it's done. It looks like people are going to be turning away from that. So it's going to be very important to highlight the regressive policies of Pierre Poilievre and the fact that, number one, when he was in power before, which he actually made people's lives harder. He was part of increasing the age of retirement. He was part of cutting pensions. He's got a track record and a history of being very, very reactionary. So we have to highlight that the kinds of things that they're putting forward are not the kind of change that we need.
Now, during this convention, as you know very well, there was a small disruption yesterday. We saw a little bit of it again today. A group of people, among them a handful of delegates, who were essentially staging a pro-Palestinian protest. They were escorted out. Some delegates lost their accreditation as a result. Can you talk to us from your perspective what happened and why you thought it was necessary to take away accreditation from that group?
Well, I will say, first of all, that ironically, what they did was, what they were doing was preventing the delegates from having the discussion on what's happening in Israel and in Gaza. So, you know, they were actually preventing debate and discussion on the issue that they claimed to be concerned about. What happened really was a small group of protesters entered the building and came onto the convention, the outside of the convention hall here. They were very disruptive. It was very unsafe for a lot of the delegates. They felt very threatened and harassed by it. And when they were asked to stop, they did not stop. And the delegates in particular, I personally asked them to stop, and they did not stop. And they were informed that if they did not stop, I would be taking away their credentials. And that's what happened under the harassment policy. There were people who were very upset, and we're still getting complaints about how people felt harassed and threatened and intimidated.
Mm-hmm. You know, that protest aside, we also heard critiques from delegates and party members who wanted to have more grassroots say, who are questioning the structure of the way the conference and the debate was actually put together. Does that point for you any type of disunity in the party that you feel needs to be addressed to make sure they come along with the party?
Well, I will say that anybody who watched, what was going on here will see that there was a lot of debate and discussion. I mean, like right up to the bitter last moment, there was debate and discussion, people lining up at the microphones to talk very passionately about the things that they care about. So I think that we did as much as possible to make sure that those debates and discussions could happen on the convention floor, but also in the more informal events, whether it was training workshops, other panel discussions, social events. There were lots of opportunities for people to have debate and discussion. But as I said, I think at the very beginning of the convention, there is never going to be enough time and space for that. But you know, in the context of a 2.5 day convention, I think we got a lot in, and I think the delegates are feeling actually quite energized and quite happy and excited that they were here and that they got to do that.
Okay, energized, happy, and that leads me conveniently to my last question to you, because of course these types of conventions are all about sparking up the base, making sure people are united and ready for another election. If the supply and confidence agreement holds, we're not looking at another election for another couple of years, but if things change, how election ready are you? Are you now in election mode?
We're definitely in election mode. We're nominating candidates, we're raising money, we're knocking on doors, we're getting ready to put forward a full slate of candidates and have a fully funded campaign, and the work is happening right now.
Okay, Anne McGrath, always appreciate the time. Thank you for this.
Thank you.